Hello, my name is Tony, and today we're going to be talking about my paper and the presentation, which is analyzing day-to-day information-seeking behaviors of older adults for interface design. The paper that I have written proposes the following research overview. In order to design for any population, we must know what that population's information-seeking behaviors are. Following that, we learn what factors pose problems for this population and how to translate from those factors to design that actually mitigates for those factors. And ultimately, we can create global studies, and that's what this paper will advocate for. And in order to advocate for a global study, my paper poses the following research questions. For example, what factors influence the online information-seeking behavior of older adults? How can information systems design be aimed in support of information-seeking successes of older adults? And what are some effective instructional approaches for improving online information-seeking successes of older adults? Some of the arguments that I pose for this paper are how critical it is to see the information-seeking behaviors of the older adult population. More specifically, I'm talking about the day-to-day information-seeking behaviors, and we do that through observations. We do that through relationship building between observer and the subject, and how those observed behaviors can lead to suggestions for better design implementation. A lot of the things that I have observed through these observations are the lack of homogeneity for this population. We're talking about the quality or state of being similar not being present for this. And we can account for lack of homogeneity to some level through controlling sample size in a global manner. More on that in a little bit. But this will ultimately lead to better equipped IT professionals who are more knowledgeable, and they will have the ability to observe trends and behaviors for future implementation. Some of the research findings that happened for me while I was doing this paper and conducting my workshops, I realized that the trainers that train their educators actually learned to have more patience to train them. The educators learned that they were able to hone in on lesson plans instead of covering broader material. In other words, we were able to actually account for sizes of student groups. We personalized lessons significantly to the behaviors that the student group was showing us. This helped to increase our transfer of information, which ultimately created more confidence within the students. By doing this, we created some relationships and rapport that influence our findings. We learned that because of this relationship, we were able to observe more behaviors during observations that otherwise were not happening because of social desirability affecting the results. Our research findings led me to propose a future research. I'm talking about creating a single committee that oversees a global study. The single committee can actually have accountability and responsibility because of centralization of information. Through the global study, we can conduct workshops that are actually enhance themselves through the findings of each workshop, much like my own. We can have information behavior observations and compile that with ethnographical exercises on sample sizes that allow for categorical similarities. Categorical similarities are clusters of individuals and members of this adult population that have some kind of similarities in their behaviors and in their interface design problems that actually accounts for the lack of homogeneity faced by this population. If we were able to report to one standard, maybe two standards, that helps with better translation from concept to actual practical design. And we can do this through following the model of information seeking as proposed by Savolainen in 1995. That is the Ellis model, the everyday life information seeking. And that information model is the everyday life information seeking. It's a wonderful model. It accounts for several behaviors. It accounts for several situations. And I encourage you guys to read his article that came out in 1995. Some of the research pragmatics that I propose for this are to have the most important caveat, which is translation. That is moving from observed behavior to design, seeing what causes the frustration, enhancing it for future implementation, and then go back to user testing. And this, of course, leads to better pedagogy. We define that as the art and science or the profession of teaching. And how do we make that better? By applying improvements to the behavior through standardization, which leads to the following. IT students need to have field studies in order to complete their degrees. That is very, very important. Some of the personal gains that I obtained from the course are understanding how to account for the lack of homogeneity that affects the older adult population. I learned how to break down my own task complexity in order to meet my goals. From the research paper, I learned how to enhance my workshops, and I tailored it for the students, and that helped me and my colleagues better transfer information. And because of that transfer of information, we were able to watch how we could translate behaviors to design implementation. Any questions? Thank you guys for watching.